I still remember the moment I stepped off the plane. The air felt different, colder than I expected. America, the land of dreams and opportunity. But for me, it was a land of uncertainty. I left my homey family and everything I knew to find a better life. I carried my mother's words in my heart. Be strong, be careful, and never forget who you are. Finding a job was not easy. My accent made me stand out. And my hijab reminded people that I was different. Some looked at me with curiosity. Others with something I couldn't quite name, but I refused to give up. I needed to work. I needed to serve. Then one day my prayers were and soared. I was offered a job as a nanny for a family of 4. It seemed perfect a place to stay a steady income and children to care for. I had always loved children. I thought this was the fresh start I needed. I had no idea how much my life was about to change. The house was beautiful, large, and filled with Lee. The moment I walked in, I felt a mixed effects and nervousness. The wife greeted me. First, she was elegant, professional, and always in a hurry. Shaw had a firm handshake and a polite smile. But I could tell she was a busy woman. Work came first for her. Welcome, she said, her voice warm but distant. The children are 6 and 4. They need a lot of fatten. I hope you're good with kids. I replied softly, I love children. She nodded. Then turned trying to call Simeon. A moment later, he walked in, the husband. He was different. His presence filled the room in a way that made me feel strange. He was tall, well-groomed, and had a smile that felt too warm, too inviting, and he held out his hand. Welcome to our home. We're lucky to have you. Hi, met mine. And for a second, I forgot to breathe. I quickly looked away. Just being kind, I told myself, but to pin something felt different. The days passed quickly. I settled into my role, taking care of the children, cleaning, and making sure everything was in order. The wife was rarely home. Her job kept her away most of the day, sometimes late at night. That meant I spent more time with the husband. He was always around, always watching, always smiling first. It was just kindness. You're doing a great job. He would say, his voice smooth and gentle. The children love you. We appreciate you. I would nod and smile, keeping my responses short, but his words stayed with me, replaying in my mind long after. He left the room, then came the small gesture as a cup of tea. When it looked tired, a blanket when I sat outside in the cold evening air, a soft hanky whispered. In passing, I told myself it was nothing. He was just too kind, but my heart started betraying me. I found myself waiting for his words, looking forward to his presence. It started with little things, small compliments, a laugh as Sage shared over something silly. The children did the way he would pause and watch me as I played with them, as if he was saying something no one else did. One evening, as I finished folding laundry, he walked and, you do so much for this family. I hope, hey, you know how much we appreciate you. It looked at my hand, still holding a neatly folded shirt. Thank you, sir. Please, smiling, call me by my name. I hesitated. Felt too personal to I not dead. Then one rainy afternoon, everything shone. The children were asleep. The house was quiet. I was in the kitchen washing dishes. When I felt him enter the room, he stood by the window watching. There were a glass of wine in his, and it's beautiful, isn't it? He said, his voice softer than usual. Turned to look. Yes, sir, smiled. You don't have to call. Me that I swallowed hard, focusing back on fetishes. I should finish my work. Tip closer, you work too hard. Do you ever take a break? Forced a laugh. There's always something to do. He watched me for a moment, then nodded. Your special yak know that something in my chest and I didn't respond couldn't bust. Deep inside, I knew this was no longer just kindness. And I was standing at the edge of something dangerous there, drummed softly against the Vendausa's steady rhythm that filled the quiet house. The children were asleep. Their soft breaths the only sound in their room. I had just finished folding dirty clothes. My mind focused on the simplicity of my work. It was peaceful until I felt his presence. I turned to see him standing by the kitchen window, a glass of wine in his hand. His gaze was distant, watching the raindrops strike across the glass. Something about him felt different in that moment. His usual hearted presence was replaced by a key intensity. Do you drink, he asked, suddenly turning to face me. I shook my head. No, sir. He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. You don't have to call me that. I saw it, pretending to focus on wiping the counter. It's his respectful, but distant hastened softly. You're not just the nanny, we're part of this home. I didn't know how to respond. The warmth in his voice made my stomach twist. I wanted to believe it was just kindness, but deep inside, I knew there was something more. A long silence stretched between us, brokenly by the occasional sigh of the wind outside. Then just as I turned to Levy, "Sigh, can we talk?" froze. "About what? About you? About how hard you work? About so much? I appreciate you." His words sent a shiver down my spine. I wanted to run to leave the kitchen and pretend this moment never happened, but my feet stayed planted to the ground. That night, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned them, playing the moment in the kitchen over and over again. His voice's presence, it lingered in the air like a forbidden perfume. I told myself I was overthinking. He was just being kind, appreciative of my work. But another part of me, the part that lay awake in that darkness, knew that wasn't true. The way he looked at me, the way his voice softened when he spoke my name, wasn't just kindness. It was something dangerous, and thing that made my heart pound and me breath quick, and I squeezed my eyes shut, whispering a silent prayer. "God, please help me. Please guide me away from temptation." But my mind refused to listen. Instead, it wondered. I thought about the way he smiled, the way he laughed when playing with the children, the way he noticed small things like when I was tired or when I needed a break. I hated myself for thinking these thoughts. He was married. He had a wife who trusted me with her children or home. How could I even allow these emotions to take root? But no matter how much I scolded myself, I couldn't ignore the truth. I liked the way he made me feel. Days passed, but the tension between us remained. I tried to avoid him, burying myself in work, always finding something to clean, to organize it out, distract myself, but he always found a way to be near me. One afternoon, as I was folding clothes in the laundry room, he peered at the doorway. "You never take breaks," he observed. Stepping inside, I forced a smile. There's always something to do. He watched me for a long moment before stepping closer. "You work so hard for this family, for me." I swallowed, suddenly unable to breathe properly. "It's my job." "It's more than just a job. To you, isn't it?" His voice was soft, almost a whisper. I couldn't look at him. If I did, I knew I would see something in his eyes that I wasn't ready to help. "You're special," he continued. "I see how much you care, how much you give, and I want you to know that I see." How I bit my lip, my fingers tightening guard in the fabric, and my hands. "Sir, I know," he interrupted, "that I know it's wrong, but tell me you don't feel it." To me, breath caught in my throat. Felt it. I felt it in the way my heart raced in, the way my skin tingled under his gaze. I felt it in the nights. I lay awake thinking about moments like this, but I couldn't say it, saying it would make it real, and if it became real, there would no turning back. I shook my head, finally daring to look up at him. "You have a wife, a family." His jaw tightened. "She never hear that doesn't change what's right and wrong." He sighed, rubbing a hand over his face. "I don't want to make you uncomfortable. I just needed you to know." He turned to leave, and for a moment I thought that would bait the end of it, that he would walk away in this dangerous game we had started. Double-do be over, but as he reached the door, paused. "If he ever changed your mind," and then he was gone. I stood there for a long time, staring at the empty doorway, me heart pounding in my chest. I should have felt relief. I should have thanked God that nothing had happened, but instead, all I felt was something terrifying. I felt disappointment, and that was when I knew I was already too far gone. Days turned into weeks, and our stolen moments became routine. It started slightly longer conversations, lingering glimpses, accidental touches that neither off, use pulled away from. The tension between us thickened, yet we both pretended it wasn't there. I told myself every morning that today would be different, that I would keep my distance, keep my head down, and just do my job of the afternoon. I would find myself drawn to him again. Conversation in the kitchen, a soft smile as he passed by, a simple touch as he handed me something. I live it for those moments, and I hated myself for it. I felt like I was trapped in a web of emotions. I never asked for every time I prayed. Better, I started dressing differently, wearing the colors he on to mention he liked on me. I paid attention to his habits, missing the way he liked his coffee, the way he ran hish through his hair when he was tired. I was slipping into something dangerous, something that didn't belong to me, but I didn't want to stop. And then it happened down. Evening, after the children were asleep and the rain poured outside, found me in the kitchen. He stood by the window, swirling a glass of wine, watching the droplets slide down the glass. "Do you drink?" he asked, his voice deep and inviting. I shook my head, feeling my heart race now. He placed the glass down and stepped closer. "Can Wadek?" I should have walked away. I should have reminded him that he had a wife and family, but I stayed. He reached out my arm, gently telling me to stoop hand. I will. I opened my mouth, but no words came as touch burnt through my skin, igniting something I had fought so hard to suppress. Before I knew it, our lips met. It was slow at first, hesitant then. About him, my body burned with shame. My chest heavy with regret is sat up in bed pressing my hands against me face. This has to stop. I whispered to myself, but the next morning when I saw him, he only had to smile for my resolve shatter. Everything fell apart the day I caught his wife staring at me differently. It was subtle a pause in her greeting, a hesitation in her smile. Something in her eyes made my stomach drop. She knew she didn't have proof, but felt that a wife always knows once a method is wrong. I had to weave fat, and I sat outside lost in my thought, found me there concern, and as I see you've been. Distant, he said, "What's wrong?" I inhaled sharply. "I can't do this anymore." His expression changed, his jaw tightening. "Don't say that." I stood up, foreseeing myself to be strong. "I have to go." Reach for my hand, his grip firm, stay. Tears burned in my eyes. "I can't." The next day, I handed him my resignation. His wife was surprised, asking me why tell him I was part of that family I had known swear that wouldn't betray me when I packed my bags. I placed the bracelet had given me on the knit stand. I walked away carrying nothing but my guilt and a lesson. I would never forget I had crossed a line, and some lines could never be uncrossed. I thought I had convinced myself that leaving was their choice, that I could walk away and never look back. But the day before I was to leave, one of the children asked me a question that nearly broke me. "Are you going to leave? U.S.?" Her voice was small, innocent. Her wide eyes searched mine for reassurance, for comfort. Is swallowed Dulel hard. "Why would you ask?" Thatch fiddle with the hem of her dresser, tiny fingers twisting the fabric nervously. "Because you don't smell anymore. You don't laugh with Daddy Egg." Before the weight of her words pressed against my chest like a heavy stone. I had let myself become part of this family, and she had noticed the shift in me for a moment. I considered telling her that I wasn't going anywhere, that things would be just tomorrow as they were today, but that would be cruel. Instead, I forced a smile and tucked a strand of her hair behind her ear. "I will always love you no matter what." She didn't understand, and it prayed she never would. The night before I left, I sat in my room staring at my packed bags. My heart with every breath I took. He came to me one last time. "Don't do this," he whispered. "Stay." It shook my head, tears slipping down my cheeks. "We both know this has to end." Has stepped closer.